Hello everyone, my name is Christina Richardson. I am the nutrition educator for All Face Food Bank and I am so happy that you joined me today to watch this video. Today we're going to be learning about practicing using recipe frameworks. We're going to discuss how to substitute ingredients in recipes if you don't like them or you find that they're too expensive in the grocery store, they're not in season, or if you just don't have them available at home to make a meal. And we're also going to share meal ideas that allow each family member to choose the toppings or ingredients that they enjoy. The first thing we're going to go over is how to substitute an ingredient. So oftentimes you'll be cooking a recipe and you either just don't have it on hand at home and you don't want to go to the grocery store, or you might be at the grocery store and you can't find it, the ingredient's too expensive, or it just doesn't look that great when you're at the store trying to find it, or your family just doesn't like it in general. So in that case, you're going to have to substitute the ingredient for something else. This is a really great chart that helps you if you want to substitute an ingredient and you don't really know how to or what to substitute it for. This chart will help you do that. So for example, the first category that it goes over is fruits and what you can substitute fruits for. So if you're going to use berries in a recipe, so blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, and raspberries, if you're going to use them raw in a recipe, so you're not going to cook them, you can really use any other fruit that you like. You could use cherries, you could use bananas, grapes, stone fruit, and those are fruit that have a pit in the middle, like peaches or nectarines, plums, pears, things like that. If you're going to cook an ingredient in your recipe, you kind of want it to come out the same way. So if you were going to have an apple pie, for example, apples have a meatier texture. They don't break down as much when you cook them. So you want to try to find a fruit that's going to be similar to apples after you cook them. So if you didn't want an apple pie or you just couldn't find them in the grocery store that day or they're too expensive, you could use a pear pie. So pears have a similar texture when you cook them down as apples do. And really it just kind of goes on your personal preference for that. Same thing would be for peaches. You can make a peach pie because peaches are a little bit similar to apples. So really you could switch it out for anything like that. Vegetables are about the same way. So if you're going to use broccoli in a recipe and you don't really want it, your kids don't like it, you could use cauliflower instead. It's pretty similar to broccoli. Same thing if you're going to cook them. Broccoli is similar to cauliflower. It kind of cooks the same way, or you could use spinach, dark leafy greens, you could use summer squash, things like that. Basically, in a recipe, if you want to substitute anything, you can change it for whatever you want. There's really not a rule that you have to follow. It really just goes on personal preference and what you want to substitute it for. Or if you don't like that ingredient at all, you can just skip it in general and you don't even have to use it. Because cooking is really all about what you want to make it, and you don't have to use any rules or recipes to follow to change ingredients in your recipe. Okay, so now that we talked about substitutions, we're now going to go over different recipes and how you can substitute things in recipes to make them enjoyable for you and your family. So this is called a recipe framework on this page, and this is something that you can use for pretty much any type of meal. And what's great about it is you don't have to use a specific recipe. You just go through and you pick an ingredient from each category and just use the amounts that are listed to make a meal. And you can use these tons of different ways and they can come out making like 50 different pasta dishes. So for example, this is a pasta dinner. And so for this, your first category that you're going to use is going to be pasta. You're going to use half a pound. It could be whole grain pasta. It could be brown rice pasta. I've seen quinoa pasta in the grocery store, or you could just use any regular type of pasta. It could be any pasta that you have or that you're going to go buy at the grocery store. And if you didn't want to use pasta, you could also use a spiralized zucchini or a spaghetti squash because those are actually kind of pasta-like after you cook them. They're just vegetables. So once you have your pasta, then you're going to choose your protein. So your protein can be anything that's listed in this category. It could be lean ground beef, it could be ground turkey, chicken, it could be already pre-cooked if you have leftovers of that, or you can cook it yourself and you're going to need 1 pound of that. You could use tofu if you want to have a vegetarian version. If you drained and crumbled, you just want a 14-ounce package of that. You can also use beans if you have those on hand. If you don't want to use meat, you're going to have 1 can of beans or 2 cups of cooked beans if you have leftover beans. You could use frozen peas or edamame, which are soybeans, and you're going to use 2 cups of that, or you could use a pound of sausage. So they actually have chicken and turkey sausage now in the grocery stores, so they don't have as much fat, and those are really nice to use. Or you could just use regular beef sausage. So once you have your pasta, you have your protein, then you're going to choose vegetables. You're going to use 2 cups of any vegetable combo that you want. So it's really great to use things that are already in your refrigerator. You can use spinach, chard, kale, because those like cook really well in pasta, broccoli, carrots, sugar snap peas or snow peas, zucchini or yellow squash. Or you could use mushrooms. It could be like a beef stroganoff. That would actually be really good. So you could really change that to be honestly whatever vegetables that you want. Then you're going to choose your sauce. You're going to have 1 to 2 cups of sauce depending on how saucy you want things. So you can have marinara sauce, a peanut sauce if you want an Asian inspired dish, canned, diced, or crushed tomatoes. You can make a cheese sauce recipe, so if you want like a macaroni and cheese, or a white sauce, which would be like an Alfredo sauce. And you can actually see those recipes to the right of the page as well. And then you're just going to add in whatever seasonings that you like, and that's just to taste. So it's dried basil, dried oregano, garlic powder, minced fresh garlic. You can add in as much of that as you want. So really, it's really great because you can use, your kids can help you with this. Each person in your family could choose a different ingredient from each category, and you can make almost like thousands of different recipes just from using one recipe framework. And that way you can use what you already have on hand. And it's not going to get boring when you're trying to make pasta each night. You don't always have to cook the same thing each time. Okay, the next recipe framework, this is for salads. So it's the same concept, but this is just for salads. So you're going to choose 4 cups of greens. It can be spinach, lettuce, romaine, mixed salad greens. Then you're going to choose 1 or 2 cups of different types of vegetables. It could be beets, carrots, broccoli. You can dice tomatoes, cucumbers, you could add corn if you want, radishes, bell peppers, really any vegetables. Then you're going to add in a protein if you want to, which could be canned beans, hard-boiled eggs, rotisserie chickens, turkey, beef, any like leftover meat that you have would be really great to add into a salad the next day, tofu or peas, things like that. Then you can add in the optional things, so that would be cheese. You can add whole grains like brown rice and barley, olives. You could do citrus like oranges, grapefruits. You can cut those up and put those in there. Whole grain croutons, dried fruit, like I love cranberries in a salad, that would be really good. You could add crumbled bacon to your salad, that would be really good too. And then salad dressing. So you don't even have to buy your own salad dressing because it's going to be kind of expensive at the grocery store. Or they have a lot of ingredients that you just can't pronounce that's in them. So this is really easy because you can make an oil and vinegar recipe, a honey mustard citrus dressing, balsamic vinaigrette, or a ranch dressing, and all of those recipes are at the bottom of the page, right on the right hand side of the screen, and you can see that they're pretty easy. They pretty much just contain oil, a vinegar, some seasonings, or lemon juice, and those are pretty much things that people have in your pantry already, and it makes a great salad dressing. All right, the last recipe framework we're going to go over is soups. And so soups are really great because they make a lot for what you're making, because you can feed a lot of people, and they also can be frozen and you can eat leftovers the next day. So you're going to have protein for this. You need 1 pound of any diced meat. So you could use beef, chicken, turkey, and again, you can use a lot of leftover things that you have in your fridge. Pork, or you can use beans and lentils if you don't want to use any meat. Then you're going to need vegetables. You're going to use 2 cups of that. So it's onions, greens, celery, zucchini, tomatoes, carrots, mushrooms, or broccoli. And you can just choose, mix and match those to your taste. And then you're going to use liquid. For the liquid, you can use water, or if you want to add more flavor, you want to use low sodium stock or broth. So you want to use low sodium chicken broth, beef broth, or vegetable broth, because that way you're not adding a ton of salt to your soup and it's not going to be really salty. So the low sodium is the best option for that. And then you're going to add in some whole grains if you want, and that's brown rice, whole wheat pasta, if you want to make a chicken noodle soup, barley, or quinoa. And then at the bottom it tells you how you can put those things together to make your soup. Okay, now we're going to go through different recipes that you can use to adapt the recipe to meet your family's needs for different tastes that you might have. So this recipe is turkey tacos. I actually make this all the time, and when I usually cook cooking classes in person, this is a recipe that we usually always make and people like it a lot. So this recipe actually has some hidden vegetables in it, which I think is great. It adds in a lot of extra nutrition into the recipe, and then it doesn't make it as noticeable. So if you have picky eaters, it's easier to hide the vegetables in with the taco meat. So for this, you can use a medium carrot, a small sweet potato, or a small zucchini. When I make this, I usually use a carrot, but you could use those other two types of vegetables as well, and you're going to grate it. So you can either use your fine part of your grater to make it really small pieces to make it less noticeable, or you're going to use just a regular grater that you would use for cheese, and you can make it a little bit bigger and it's still not as noticeable. And so you're going to grate up your carrot, small sweet potato, or zucchini, and then the lettuce, tomatoes, and cheese. Those are just going to be for toppings, but you could use any other toppings that you want to as well instead of that your family likes for tacos. And then you're going to use 1 can of low sodium pinto beans, a pound of lean ground turkey. For the turkey, if you don't like ground turkey, you could just ground chicken. You could use ground beef, or you could use tofu if you wanted to have it vegetarian, or just leave the meat out all the way, and you could just use vegetables for that. Same for the beans that I already mentioned above. If you don't have pinto beans, you could use black beans, you could use kidney beans, or any can of beans that you have in your pantry. You don't have to go out especially just to buy pinto beans, but you do want to make sure they're low sodium. That way you're going to keep the salt level low in the recipe. Then it's going to have 1 can of chopped tomatoes, no salt added though, again, to keep the sodium low. If you don't like tomatoes, you could leave them out. And then instead of buying a taco seasoning mix that you can get at the grocery store that has tons of salt in it, you're going to make your own. So it's going to have a tablespoon of chili powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, some dried oregano, salt, and pepper. And you could use and add more spices if you want to. So you could use paprika, or you could use cayenne pepper if you want to make it spicy, or use whatever you have on hand. You could put in some Italian seasoning, other things like that. And then you're just going to eat it in taco shells. So you could use hard taco shells, you could use soft flour tortillas, you could even just put this mixture over rice, you could make it into a salad, into a burrito, you can make it into a quesadilla, onto nachos. You really could make this in a ton of different ways as well. Okay, so the next slide is actually going to show you the video of how you put this recipe together. All right, so as you can see, that recipe is actually very easy to put together. It's pretty fast, it makes great leftovers, and you can make it a lot of different ways and have your family be able to top their tacos with lots of different toppings to make it their own. Okay, the next recipe we're going to talk about is actually called turkey burger macaroni. This is a really good recipe because it's like a healthier version of a hamburger helper. So this recipe, and it also makes a lot of food for your family. It makes a really big portion so you have leftovers, or if you have really hungry kids or a bigger family, and it goes a long way. So this recipe uses 2 cups of whole wheat macaroni. The macaroni, I find, is kind of hard to find in the whole wheat version in the grocery store. I've never actually seen it in that style of pasta, so I usually just use regular macaroni when I make this, or you could use any other pasta shape that you have in your cabinet, but you just want it to be like more of a small pasta shape. I don't think it would come out as well if you use spaghetti or linguine or angel hair. You want to try to find a short cut pasta. And then you're going to use a small red bell pepper, an onion, and garlic as your part of your vegetables. If you don't like bell peppers, you could just leave them out. You could add in broccoli. It could be like a broccoli cheddar pasta if you want to do that. You could, if you don't like onions, you could leave the onions out. Or same with the garlic. You could use garlic powder if you don't want to have fresh garlic, and just add in whatever vegetables that you want. If you add in mushrooms, that would be really good. It could be like a beef stroganoff if you just leave out the bell peppers. And then it's going to have some reduced fat cheddar cheese. If you have regular cheese, you could use that, or if you want to use pepper jack, it'd be a little spicier, but that would be good as well. And you could also use mozzarella. You could use whatever cheese that you have in your refrigerator already. Then for meat, it's going to have a pound of lean ground turkey. That's going to be lower fat, so it's healthier, but you could also use lean ground beef, or you could just leave the meat out if you just want to have a vegetarian version of this dish. And then it's going to have a can of diced tomatoes. You can add those in, or you could use fresh tomatoes if you have fresh tomatoes. If you don't like tomatoes, you can just leave the tomatoes out. And then for seasoning, it's going to have a tablespoon of dried thyme leaves. If you don't have dried thyme, that's something that usually some people might not have in their pantry already if they don't cook with it. You could just use Italian seasoning. That's something I think most people have in their pantry, and it gives you about the same flavor. Or you could just leave the thyme out altogether. And then you're going to just have some salt and pepper. And so this recipe, as you can see, it's pretty easy, doesn't have many ingredients, and if you don't have them, it's pretty easy to swap out for things that you already have in your pantry. And the next slide is going to show us a video of how to make this recipe. Oops. Here we go. Sorry, can I get the video to play? Sorry about the technical difficulties. I hope you enjoyed watching that video. But as you can see, that looks a lot like Hamburger Helper, like we just made it out of the box, but it looks a lot healthier. It's going to taste a lot better too, and it makes a lot for your family. And it's pretty quick. It only takes about one pan just to cook everything, and then your other pot to boil some water to boil the pasta. And it's pretty quick and comes together easily. Okay, our last recipe we're going to go over is called Baked Flaked Chicken. This is really great and something that I would never really have made before I saw this recipe, and once I tried it I knew that it was a good recipe to keep around, and I actually make it, about once or twice a month for my family as well. And so this recipe is pretty much just like fried chicken, but you're going to bake it instead, but the breading is actually going to be a lot crispier, so it's not as dry as breadcrumbs are. Okay, so it's going to have 2 pounds of boneless chicken pieces. I usually buy the chicken tenderloins that are already in the grocery store because they're already shaped and cut to look like chicken tenders. But if you don't have that, or you don't want to purchase them, because sometimes they can be a little bit more expensive, you can just use chicken breast or chicken thighs and cut them down to the pieces that you want. Or you can even cut them even smaller and make them into chicken nuggets. And then you're going to use 3 cups of cornflakes. The cornflakes, you want to make sure they're the plain cornflakes. They're not the sweetened ones because you don't want it to be sweet for this dish. You want it to be have pretty much no seasoning at all, and they're just plain cornflakes. And then you're going to have 1/3 cup of whole wheat flour. If you don't have whole wheat flour and you just don't want to buy it because you don't think you're ever going to use it again, you can just use regular flour. That's okay. And then for seasoning, it calls for salt and black pepper. You definitely want to make sure you keep the salt and black pepper, but I think to have it be a lot more flavorful, not so bland, you want to add in a lot of extra seasonings. So I add in garlic powder, onion powder, smoked paprika, and some parsley or Italian seasoning to mine when I make them, and I do a lot of seasoning. That way the breading is going to be really nice and seasoned. And then you're going to have 2 eggs and 1/4 cup of non-fat milk. So it's really easy. You're just going to put the cornflakes in a bag. You're going to crush them up. You're going to add in a lot of seasoning. Then you're going to have the flour that's in a bowl. You can season that as well. And then the milk and the egg are going to get whisked together. So you're going to put the chicken into the flour first, and then from the flour into the egg, and then from the egg into the cornflakes. Because the flour is going to help the egg stick to the chicken, and then the cornflakes, that's going to stick to the egg. So it's going to go flour, egg, and then cornflakes when you're breading everything together. And then you're just going to bake it in the oven. And they cook pretty quick as long as you cut them into small pieces. For chicken tenders, they don't take very long to cook. And if you have an air fryer, they actually come out even better in the air fryer because they can get really crispy. All right, and then the next slide is going to be a video of showing you how to make this recipe. hope you enjoyed watching that recipe. That would be a really good recipe to serve with macaroni and cheese. You could serve it with sweet potato fries or regular French fries or even a salad. There's tons of different ways that you can serve it, and it's pretty fast to make. Alright, so during this video, I hope that you got a lot of useful information out of it and that you have learned that it's really okay to substitute any ingredients that you have in a recipe that you either just don't have on hand, you don't like them, or your family doesn't like them, or when you go to the grocery store you just can't find it or it's too expensive. It really is okay to switch ingredients for whatever you want. That's honestly the best part about cooking, is that you can make it your own and you can change up whatever you want. You don't really have to follow a specific recipe like exactly 100% to make it work for you. You can really make it work for you and your family. And also, I hope those recipe frameworks were helpful for you. You actually don't have to use a recipe. You could just kind of make sure you have an ingredient from almost like different food groups. You want to make a pasta, you can just have pasta and a protein and a vegetable and a sauce, and you can just have a meal that way. So you really don't have to even follow a recipe if you don't want to. And that, just don't worry, if you keep practicing, it's going to get easier. And as you develop your cooking confidence, you'll get better at making simple recipe adjustments based on what you like and what you didn't like. Okay, so for Cooking Matters, this is actually a class that we usually teach in person, but sadly because of COVID-19, we've having to do this online version. But Cooking Matters actually has a great resources for you that you can use either at an app format or on their website at cookingmatters.org. They have tons of recipes, even the recipes that I just showed you with these videos. They have a YouTube channel where you can watch the videos of recipes and how to make it. If you're confused as to how to make a certain recipe, you can look on there and watch them make it. Or they have the recipes for you to follow on their website. Also, they have like other cooking tips and things like that, and how to shop smart in the grocery store. So these two things are great resources for you to use if you had any questions about that. And they also have a Facebook page where they do live events, so they'll do like live cooking demonstrations where you can actually ask questions in person, which are pretty great. And then all of the pages that we saw today in the slideshow, they're actually available at cookingmatters.org/cookingmattershome. And the recipe frameworks and the recipes that I just showed you today are actually going to be in this book that is right here on the right hand side of the page in Cooking Matters at Home, and you can actually go on and print those out if you want to reference it again. So all the like the pasta, soup, salad recipe frameworks, those are going to be all found in this book if you just go to the website. That's right up here. You can find those and print them out for yourself if you want to use them in the future. Okay, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this whole presentation all the way through. So again, I'm Christina Richardson, and I do work at Allface Food Bank, and we also provide other resources besides nutrition education if you needed help with anything. So we have food distributions where anyone can go and pick up food. Our schedule can be found here at this website, so it's allfacefoodbank.org, and if you go to /food finder, you can go on and find all the dates and locations of all of our food distributions. We have mobile farm markets, which are we give people produce, and we also have other distributions where you can get groceries, so including produce and meat, canned goods, things like that. So if you or anyone that you know needs assistance with any food, you can go to any of our locations and you can go as many times as you want. We don't have any process for qualification for that. Anyone can go and get food if they need help. We also offer assistance with food stamps. So if you need help, or if you or someone that you know needs help filling out their SNAP applications, you can go to allfacefoodbank.org/SNAP assistance, and you can actually fill out this online referral, and then someone from our location will actually call you to help you walk through that process if you needed assistance walking through the process for applying for food stamps. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any other questions, you can email me. My name is Christina Richardson. My email is krichardson@allfacefoodbank.org. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I look forward to doing another one soon. Thank you.